Hello everyone, and welcome to this ZeeTim demo video. My name is Jonathan, and I'm an engineer here at ZeeTim, and today we're going to explain a bit about who we are and talk about one of our flagship products which we offer, which is our endpoint operating system, ZeeOS. A quick word about us. So ZeeTim is a software vendor specialized in providing solutions to the challenges that virtual environments may cause. Our products have been around since 1999, and we have continued to develop them ever since. Our headquarters are located in Paris, France, but we also have a global presence around the world with offices in Europe, the US, and the Middle East. As you can see, we have a pretty diverse panel of clients from all over the world and in many different sectors like retail, logistics, banking, insurance, the public sector, and many more. We also work with most VDI providers like Citrix, Microsoft, Omnissa, among others. Here you can see all of the products we offer. In a nutshell, we have right here ZeeOS, so our thin client OS, which will be the base of today's demo. We also have our own thin client hardware, which we call ZeeTims, which is a very versatile and powerful model. We also have a SaaS and on-prem MFA solution called ZeeOTP. It includes all the standard features you would expect from an MFA solution. But ZeeOTP's key differentiator on the market being that we enable you to host the servers on-prem instead of having a purely SaaS solution. And this is very appreciated by the clients who want to keep their infrastructure airtight. We have ZKey, which is a password vault that can supply credentials to apps running on your local machine, as well as within your virtual environment, which is quite unique on the market. And then right here we have ZPrint and ZScan, which are software that optimize the printing and scanning of documents in VDI environments, which, as you know, can be a real pain. And ZScan, by the way, is the only scanning software for VDI environments that supports all scanners and all formats. So we have all these products available to you, but today we're really going to focus on ZeeOS and the Web Management Console. So our OS has hardened security. We really wanted to have a dumb device in the sense that users cannot make any modifications to the system locally. Only an admin can make configuration changes from a central management console, which is what we will be showing today. The packets present on the OS are completely independent from each other, meaning that if, for whatever reason, a packet were to be compromised, it would not affect any of the others present on the system. ZeeOS can be deployed on basically any device which you can repurpose, or it is deployed by default on our hardware, which you can see in the right-hand corner right here. Some interesting use cases we've seen throughout the years include multi-site branch networks, decentralized agencies, retail, and education, where there are many endpoints located in different areas that need to be managed. Healthcare and industrial sites also benefit from our products like ZeeOS and ZKey, as the endpoints are usually shared amongst all of the staff. From a more technical point of view, ZeeOS can be easily deployed without needing admin intervention, so it can be very useful in disaster recovery scenarios. Our hardware has very low energy consumption, so it is great for companies looking to reduce the load on the electrical infrastructure. And thanks to the hardened security of the OS and the airtight capabilities of our solutions, those looking to have restricted environments greatly benefit from our products. So now, onto the demo to show you how to deploy and manage your ZeeOS endpoints. Here's an overview of the solution's architecture. So here you have the Web Management Console, which is a service running on a Windows machine. The licensed server can be hosted on the same machine, no issue. Then all you have to do is connect your endpoints to the WMC to be able to configure them. If you have devices that are outside of your local network, we provide an appliance called ZGateway to manage those devices. And of course, all communications are encrypted and secure. Alright, so to access the Web Management Console, we can use either an account that comes from Active Directory or a local user account, so we're going to be using Active Directory here. So once you log into the Web Management Console, we're presented with this dashboard where you can see the total number of endpoints that have registered to the Web Management Console. So in this instance, we have 32 total endpoints that have registered, 12 of which are active within our LAN, the others are turned off, and we have 0 that are currently outside of our LAN. Since I'm an admin, I can see every endpoint within our organization. So currently we have 32, but you can also configure admins with lesser privileges that would only be able to see a small subset. So for example, only 10 of the 32 you can see right here. The endpoint menu is where you as the administrator will be spending the majority of your time. So we have two logics essentially for seeing endpoints within your organization. We have the endpoint tree and the endpoint list. So to start off with the endpoint tree, click on it, And it's organized in the same way that you would organize Active Directory with OUs, and then to those OUs you would apply GPOs. So in this example, we have groups, so Paris, USA, same as OUs in Active Directory, and then in those groups you put in subgroups, and then within those subgroups you can put in endpoints. If you want to apply configurations, so to configure all of your endpoints in the same way, you would apply what we call templates to these individual groups or subgroups, and it would apply that configuration to the terminal or to the endpoint. We'll come back to that a bit later on. With the endpoint list, it's fairly straightforward. You just have a list of every endpoint you have in your organization. Of course, over here you can filter for which endpoints you want to search for. And you can see general information, so the IP address, which user is present on the machine, which OS version it's running. If you want to actually configure an endpoint or run some commands on it, you have the three little dots right here where you can run some quick commands. So you can shut down, you can restart the endpoint, you can initiate a remote connection, stuff like that. If you want to get a bit more detailed in your configuration, you're going to actually click on the endpoint itself. This is going to bring you to a more detailed configuration page. If we click on endpoint information, we can see general information, so the IP address, the MAC address, the last heartbeat, which is quite interesting, which is the last time that the machine essentially pinged the Web Management Console to tell it, hey, I'm still alive, I'm still running. So you can use this for debugging if you want to know when a machine crashed or when it was turned off, for example. And we have the same general management buttons right here. So restart the endpoint, shut it down, initiate a remote connection, stuff like that. So if we go down here to the configuration menu, we have the edit configuration button, which we're going to press. This essentially locks the endpoint so that only you can modify the configuration of the endpoint, and no other administrator can come in and change it while you are changing it. And then down here we have various different menus, so we're going to go through them real quick. First of all, we have the settings menu, where we have general stuff, general configuration about the endpoint, so the language, the key map, the date, the time. We also have a task scheduler, which can be quite useful for deploying updates or just managing the infrastructure, for example, where you would want to reboot the endpoint at a certain time every day. So just click on the add button here. We can reboot or shut down. So for example, in this instance, we're going to reboot every day of the week, and we're going to do that at 8 o'clock every day. So this would reboot the endpoint, and then we can add, of course, update. So this is updating the endpoint to reboot every day at 8 p.m. If we go down here to the devices menu, we have external devices, which allows you to either blacklist or whitelist devices that are plugged into the endpoint itself. So we can default allow or block. And then we have the add button right here, which allows us to select the devices that are either already plugged in to the endpoint. So as you can see here, we already have a keyboard, a mouse, a headset. Or we can use the vendor ID and the product ID to select which endpoints should either be blocked or allowed. Next, I'm going to skip over the display menu, and we'll come back to it afterwards. You'll see why. But we have, in the meantime, we have the network menu, where we have just general network configurations, which an admin will easily be able to navigate around. So we have DNS configuration, proxy configuration, VPN configuration, so with OpenVPN, WireGuard, or if you go down here to ZConnect, we also support Cisco, Juniper, Fortinet, Palo Alto, F5, basically all of the major VPN providers. We have the client natively integrated into the OS. If we go down here to Wi-Fi system, this forces an endpoint to only use one SSID, which you provide. So you would put the name here, the encryption method, the password, of course, and this would force the endpoint to use only that Wi-Fi network. So if I go down here to the apps section, we have all of the apps that are natively integrated into our OS with the major VDI providers, so Citrix, Omnissa, AVD, as well as a few other applications which our clients particularly appreciate. If we go down here to Citrix, we can do any configuration that the Citrix workspace allows us to configure. So we have the store URL, we can do display desktops, so either full screen or windowed, the UDP audio ports, everything that you could configure as an admin normally, you can do it from here. And of course, it's the same for Omnissa, Parallels, every other application you see here. We can also go down here to remote connections to create remote connection objects, so RDP, ICA, PuTTY, or VNC. This allows users to just double-click on an icon, so RDP, ICA, whatever, and it would launch them into their session automatically without them having to do any configuration like password or URL from their side. So as you can see, we already have an object configured here to go into a VM, but I can just click on Add, and here you have the configuration you want. So the IP address, the domain, username, password. And if you already have an RDP file configured, you can just click on the little plus right here and upload that file, and everything will be automatically configured for you. When we go down here into debug info, this is just general debugging stuff for admins. All of the information you see here is being sent directly from the terminal, or is essentially what you would see if you were connected directly on the endpoint. We can see all of the network interfaces. We can see the DHCP configuration, Wi-Fi, and down here in troubleshoot, we have a few commands which we can execute. So ping, dig, mtr, these will be executed directly from the endpoint itself. So now we're going to go back up here to the display menu, which I conveniently skipped previously. If we go to menus, we can essentially see the two ways that the operating system can operate. So it can operate in full desktop mode, which is sort of the classic desktop user experience where you have icons and the user clicks on the icons to launch applications. You can completely configure the start menu, the desktop itself, by just using drag and drop. So here we have the available applications, Google Chrome, the terminal, Citrix Workspace. We can just drag and drop those into the start menu or onto the desktop. We can also go to single app mode or zero client mode. This forces the user to only be able to use one application of your choosing. So down here we can force, for example, Citrix Workspace or Omnissa Horizon Client or Google Chrome, and the user will only be able to access this application and nothing else, right? They won't be able to close out of it. They won't be able to do anything outside of the application you've defined here. So over here in our little demo environment, we've set up Citrix Workspace to launch at startup. And if we go over here to the side, we've also set up kiosk mode, which you might be familiar with. So kiosk mode forces the user to only use Citrix Workspace and nothing else present here. If we click on the edit icon here, we see that it's launch at startup and in kiosk mode. And it's also set to none here. If we were to set it to always up, power off the endpoint, or reboot the endpoint, these options define what happens if the user were to close out the application. So it could power off the endpoint, for example. Right now, we're just going to set it to none. Perfect. So now, once we've configured that, we can go over here to remote connection to see actually what is going on the endpoint itself. So I'm going to click remote connection. Do I want to connect? Yes, I do. So we can now see what's going on the endpoint itself. We can alternate between the two screens right here, which are connected to the endpoint. Right now we're in view-only mode, so we can't actually put any inputs onto the endpoint itself. I'm going to take away view-only mode. I'm going to click on connect. So this is the Citrix Workspace that we configured previously to be in kiosk mode and to launch at startup. So right now I'm just going to put in my username and password. And now, as you can see, we are connected to an ICA session, so we can launch any application. So for example, Google Chrome, anything we want to do on the endpoint, we can do from the Web Management Console. All right, so back to the endpoint configuration itself. If we close out of this window right here, disconnect, yes. So we're back to the endpoint configuration. So once you're happy with how the endpoint is configured, if you want to apply this configuration to a bunch of other endpoints that you may have in your environment, what we're going to do is we're going to come here to create template. Creating a template allows us to choose what we want to take from the current configuration. So we can either use select all or only have certain specific aspects of the current configuration. So for example, only the Omnissa configuration, and even then within the Omnissa configuration, you can only have certain specific aspects. So this allows you to get very granular in what you want to take from the current configuration. So you give this template a name, a description if you want to, and then create a template with this button right here. Once you've created a template, you can go over here into the templates option. You can view all of the templates that you have created. So for example, we have 2 demo templates, which you can see right here. If we go to the endpoint tree, so this is what I was talking about earlier with sort of the Active Directory and GPO logic, where we can go to, for example, USA and Texas, and if I want to apply configurations to only Texas, for example, I can click on the 3 little dots right here, edit, group templates, and then here is where I would add a template. So for example, demo template. And the configuration which is in demo template will be applied to every subgroup and to every endpoint within those subgroups. Of course, you can apply several templates to the same group. For example, here if I go to demo template and apply it, here demo template with the lowercase d will have a lower priority than the one with the uppercase d. And any configuration changes done here would sort of be squashed by the ones applied here. So for example, just the Citrix configuration here would squash the Citrix configuration of the demo template with a lowercase d. So then we have what we call zero-touch deployment with the source IPs right here. What you would do is you would put a network in here, and any endpoint that receives through DHCP an IP that matches with the source IP network that you put right here, when it registers to the WMC, the endpoint will automatically be put into a group. So for example, in this instance, it would be the Texas group, and it would receive automatically its configuration from the group templates. So you, as an administrator, you don't need to do anything. You just need to make sure that your DHCP server is set up correctly and that your WMC is set up correctly, and the endpoints will configure by themselves. So finally, the last thing I wanted to show you guys with the Web Management Console is the roles feature that we have. So if we go to security, roles, we can create new roles that essentially have a very granular control in what you want to give access to. So for example, we can create a role with add new authorization, or add an endpoint lock, or if we go a bit down here, get user profiles. Basically anything you can do from the Web Management Console can be set here into the permissions, and then you can give very granular admin control to certain specific users through these roles. So we can go up here, for example, and search for templates. And we can have add a new template, put it into here, and then give it a name. So for example, demo, save it. And so now we have a new role where admins will only be able to add templates. All right, so that about wraps up our demo for today. If you want more information about our solutions, you can check out our website at www.ZeeTim.com. You can also test our OS for free with all of the technical documentation available to you at docs.zeetim.com, where you can see licensing, the OS, the Web Management Console, OTP, zprint, zscan, everything you might need. Finally, you can check out our YouTube and our LinkedIn, where we post videos and updates about our products. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video.